Suicide prevention. We are all gatekeepers. Suicide prevention is caring. Suicide prevention occurs long before a crisis. What does the statement, we are all gatekeepers, mean to you?
Maybe that we're trying to prevent someone going to like heaven's gates. I don't know. I've never heard that term in my life.
What did
Anybody
you say?
got?
Like what did you say? I didn't hear what you said.
We are all gatekeepers. What does that statement mean to you?
Um, and my personal opinion, this is just my personal opinion. To me, I believe that gatekeepers are there to help people from well, entering into there's a heaven and a hell. I believe there's a heaven and a hell. I mean, and to help them from suicidal, like it says in the word that suicidal is, you can't take your own life. So to help them and to reach a point of life, to come back to the Lord or whatever way they want to find the Lord, help them before they reach suicidal areas, suicide thoughts, and the stuff they haven't even repented from things yet. You know what I mean? Who knows? It's there to help them. That's just my personal belief. It could be totally wrong.
So what I believe that means is, since we're going to bring up the Bible, in the Bible it states that there's a gatekeeper to the gates of hell.
Okay.
And what we are is we are the key holders to the gate between life and death. We are that gatekeeper. We are there to try to hold that key and keep that gate closed and divert the person away from the gate of suicide back towards life and wanting to live.
Okay, good. I like that. Bill? Yeah. Good. Yes, sir. I like that too. So, what I'm hearing you guys say is that we hold the keys, or we are at least there to help somebody find their way, right? Um, what do you think about the suicide prevention is caring? What does that mean to you?
Honestly, through like addiction, um, and suicide, because I've been like, cause I've had a lot of suicide attempts and stuff. Like, all I wanted was for like someone to care, like my family to like show that they cared. You know what I mean? So, I feel like it's loving people sober, or like loving people back to their loving people back to life, because sometimes people just feel like they don't have a purpose. In my own experience and the way I feel, um they just like they don't have a purpose, you know what I mean? So I just feel like it's nice, like it's a being caring is one of the things that really like got me out of my addiction, is just having those people who actually cared around me, and it just gave me like, like a reason to want to live and be sober. Like, even though I have kids, like sometimes it's like super hard because you feel like you're letting them down, you know what I mean? So it's like, and they're just kids, so it's like having an adult, like, like people who care is just like really relieving that you can have somebody, to talk to. So, like coaches, so.
Okay, thank you. Bree?
So in my experiences, suicide prevention is caring. anytime I hear that, I hear about one of my friends that we always called Peter because of his last name. And for years, I saw him hurt. And he was one of the funniest guys I knew. And I always tried to be extra kind to him because he didn't feel like anybody loved him. And I lost touch with him. And then about 5 years later, I heard that he had shot himself through the mouth and killed himself in his bedroom of a mutual friends of ours. And it's not just do we have a purpose, but do we matter to anybody? I personally am a self-harmer, and it was out of a way to like punish myself, because if I punish myself, then I wouldn't be as punished in my abusive relationships. And as I got older, the thought of being worthless, of not having meaning to anyone, especially after my kids were taken from DHS, that was it, because I knew as a mom I had meaning to my children, but then they were taken because I couldn't keep up with 3 households worth of 3-bedroom, 2-garage households being put into a tiny 3-bedroom apartment and keeping that clean. And so because I reached out to DHS, I got my kids taken, even though they promised to help me over 6 months. And if it wasn't for one of my parenting time supervisors showing me that I mattered as an individual to her, not because it was her job, but because she just genuinely cared about me, that pulled me away from the thoughts of suicide into, you know what, if I matter to this stranger, to this person who it's literally their job to pretend to care, is genuinely showing true care, then maybe I am worth more than just being a mom. Maybe I am worth more than just some person who hands your food at McDonald's. And she ended up being my domestic violence coach, and I'm still working with her today, and it still helps me today. So it's not just caring, it's caring to a point where you legitimately give that person meaning in their own life for themselves.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to say what suicide prevention is caring means? This whole statement here, we are all gatekeepers, suicide prevention is caring, and suicide prevention occurs long before a crisis, is woven throughout this training. And it's basically talking about that we are there to help people find their way to the gate and through the gate, that there's a way out. And that all starts with caring about people, and it definitely starts long before the crisis. How many of you understand that suicide intervention can happen at many different stages? Okay. It can happen before ideation, it can happen before planning, or it can happen before the attempting. Suicide ideation can start out small and build over time. Who can tell me what suicide ideation is?
Thinking about it.
Thinking about it a lot.
Yeah. Feeling put upon by life, or unable to handle depression or grief or whatever terrible, and just entertaining that thought, like, wow, that's one way to do it. That's the way out.
And then what would planning look like?
To figure out what mode you're going to use. A gun or drugs or jump off a bridge or whatever the plan is to make it happen.
Learning how to tie a noose.
Right.
So being someone who's been in the stages of planning before for suicide, it starts before that. It starts when you start in not just having like, God, death would be so much better than life right now. Like, I just wish I was dead. Those kind of thoughts go along with suicidal ideation. However, when it starts transferring, the very first step of planning isn't how you're going to do it, isn't learning different techniques. It actually starts with the change in the thought process of I want to die to could I really kill myself? If I was going to go through with this, could I actually do it? That's when the planning starts. Yeah, thank you, Bill. Yeah.
Good. And then obviously attempting would look like carrying out whatever that plan was, right? Suicide prevention happens long before the crisis. You're going to hear this over and over throughout this training. Could I get somebody to read this slide, please?
Language matters. Words have power. Words matter. The language we choose is an indicator of social injustice and has the power to shape our ideas and feelings in very insidious ways. Words to abandon. Committed suicide. Used when suicide was thought of as a crime. Committed a crime. Successful suicide suggests an achievement of something positive. Unsuccessful attempt. Surviving means I'm unsuccessful. Failed attempt, I'm a failure. Suicide is selfish. Words to adopt. Person-centered. Died by suicide. Suicide took one's own life. Death by suicide. Killed themselves. Ended his or her life. Suicide attempt. Fatal attempt, non-fatal attempt. Loss survivor. Survivor of suicide loss.
How many of you believe that the words we use matter?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely do, right? You can see when I'm looking through those words to abandon, I can think like, I can see how over time people try different things and go, yep, nope, that's not going to work either. Right? I'm still not sure that I'm happy with the words that they have for us to adopt, but
well, they're a step up.
They're a step up, yes. So suicide is not only a mental health crisis, it's a public health issue. We're going to talk about some statistics now.
Let me get in the bed.
Statistics communicate important information. They don't come close to portraying the raw, hopeless pain that someone with suicidal ideation thoughts is feeling, or the heartbreaking grief of a friend or family member who has lost someone that they love. A public health crisis. 45,979 Americans died by suicide in the United States in 2020. That was actually down from 47,511 in 2019 and 48,344 in 2018. But it's more than twice the number of homicides. It's 130 suicides each day. For every suicide, 25 others attempt it. Approximately 1.2 million attempts in 2020. That again was down from 1.38 million attempts in 2019. It's the 12th leading cause of death across the spectrum. For ages 20 to 34, suicide is the number 2 leading cause of death. The highest rate of suicide is among middle-aged white males, and the veterans' suicide rate is 1.5% higher. Research from the Trevor Project found that 712,990 LGBTQ youth between the ages of 13 and 24 had suicide attempts in 2021. That's a lot of suicide attempts. This chart just kind of shows the rate per 100,000 individuals, and they're color coded for the different age groups, and this is the different years as we go along. Suicide and substance use disorder. Obviously, this is what we're going to talk about, being substance use peer coaches, right? Experts say untangling accidental from intentional deaths by overdose can be very difficult. You can imagine why. If there's not a suicide note, it's hard to determine that that overdose was intentional. CDC has calculated that suicides from opioid overdoses nearly doubled between 1999 and 2014. In 2014, national surveys showed that individuals addicted to prescription opioids had a 40 to 60% higher risk of suicidal ideation. Habitual users of opioids were twice as likely to attempt suicide as people who did not use them. There's a difference between not caring if I die and wanting to die, but it's a thin line, isn't it? What are you guys' thoughts on that? Is it easy to determine the difference between an overdose, whether it was intentional or not? What do you think?
Honestly, I feel like regardless, if they did intend to kill themselves, their thought process and their cognitive thinking process and everything is not there. Because when I was having my addiction, all I wanted to do was die. Like, I hated that, like, almost nothing I did, like how hard I tried, like I just still got high and I wanted to get high. And I just felt like nothing could change that. Even looking at my kids, like I wanted so bad to get sober. And I mean, I did it, but when my brain became clearer and things weren't so foggy, I didn't want to die anymore, you know? Like, and I just think that, well, I know that from experience, like the drugs, they just take over our brains and we just really become people who we're not anyways. So just think of like all the things that it does to, like, the thought process that's not there. Like, when it becomes so much clearer, you're like, why? Like, I don't want to die. So like, I've tried to take my life when I was under the influence, and now that I look back, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I don't want to die. Like, I enjoy life as a sober person. It's just the wall and the barrier of like getting sober. It just seems so hard. But when you get sober, it really wasn't that hard at all. It's just mind over matter, really.
Yeah, thank you. Louis?
Yeah, I think the original question, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I forgot, was if it's hard to determine whether or not someone took their life via an overdose, right, Eric?
Yeah, correct.
And I guess I've had one experience with a person close to me that they were looking at some federal charges, and it was very obvious that, they decided to go back out, and they would rather do that than face the federal time. Whereas I've had some friends that it was very difficult whether or not to determine that if it was suicide or not. I think it does boil down sometimes to the person's state of mind, and whether or not they were speaking to it, or that they were showing any warning signs of them doing that.
Dan.
Just for something to think about. I mean, a lot of people die in overdose because of, being laced with fentanyl and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes that has to be taken into account. I mean, they were trying to just like do an edible or something that would, and then they died from it. There's those factors too.
Thank you. Here's some statistics from Colorado. Suicide is a public health problem and leading cause of death in the United States. Suicide can also be prevented. More investment in suicide prevention, education, and research will prevent the untimely death of thousands of Americans each year. Unless otherwise noted, this fact sheet reports 2019 data from the CDC, the most current verified data available at time of publication. That's the 7th leading cause of death in Colorado, the 2nd leading cause of death for ages 15 to 44, 5th leading cause of death for ages 45 to 54, 6th leading cause of death for ages 55 to 64, and the 16th leading cause of death for ages 65 and older. Suicide death rates, Colorado is 1,312. That's the rate per 100,000 population is 22.1. Nationally, it's 13.93. So we're way above the national average. Colorado ranks 5th in not a great category to be ranked in the top 5 or 10. 68.6% of communities did not have enough mental health providers to serve residents in 2020, according to the federal guidelines. 8 times as many people died by suicide in 2019 than in alcohol-related motor vehicles. The total deaths to suicide reflected a total of 29,297 years of potential life loss before the age of 65. 76.48% of firearm deaths were suicide, and 49.31% of all suicides were by firearms. I would recommend you guys to check with your local health departments. You can probably get some statistics based on your county. So suicide and SUD. Can somebody read this slide, please?
Well, 95% of individuals. While 95% of individuals with a mental health illness or SUD will not die by suicide, 90% who die by suicide either have a mental or substance use disorder or both. Between 40 to 60% who take their own lives are intoxicated by alcohol at time of death. 40% of patients seeking treatment for SUD report at least one suicide attempt.
Thank you. Why don't we talk about it? Okay. Anybody else?
I think partly for the same reason I didn't think we should talk about what people's plans would be, because we think it's going to encourage someone to do that.
Okay, good. Let's do this. We're going to do some breakout rooms. And in your breakout rooms, you guys come up with every reason you can think of why we don't talk about it. Why don't you talk about it? Seven minutes. That's plenty of time, isn't it? Somebody write down your list. And
Yeah.
in 7.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Bill. We don't talk about it because it's scary. And shameful and, well, unknown. It's just, pardon? Yeah. Well, and can I share something that's just comes to my mind? I was with my first boyfriend for 4 years in high school, and I just assumed we were going to get married. High school and then after. And then he broke up with me. And my super dramatic, almost 21-year-old brain thought, wow, I wanted to kill myself. And thank God. That's all it was a little thought. Never went to the extent of going further to figuring out how or why, but it was like I was devastated because I didn't have any self-worth and I was tied to this male person.
Stupid boy.
What?
I said stupid boy.
Well, thank you. No, it's really a good thing we didn't get married because I had to have children and he did not want kids. So that would not have worked.
Well, there you
at
go.
all.
So
Anyway,
it worked out.
you're very sweet. Oh my gosh. But you're just that's so many lifetimes ago for me that I even thought of that. My goodness.
I remember when I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
When I had mentioned to a friend when I was in high school that I just wanted to kill myself. I don't even think I meant it seriously. It was just kind of one of those things that like crossed my mind and I said it out loud instead of just letting it sit in my head, which might have been the best thing because I did end up getting on antidepressants, which I probably needed at the time. But I remember my friend's dad telling me that it was a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And you're so right. When you're young, you don't think about what the rest of your life is going to look like. You just right now don't want to feel what you're feeling. And I
yeah.
think that's what I've heard so many times with people with suicide is just whatever they're going through at that moment is so unbearable.
Yeah.
That they're
Well,
not even thinking about anything else.
We were just such an item in high school and I just assumed we were going to get married. And then when, the bombshell was bye, you're out of this. So like, what?
Your whole life plan was gone.
Yeah, but
yeah,
it was. But at the same time, I came from a dysfunctional family. No dad. I mean, he left when I was 10, so I didn't have role models to follow about a healthy relationship, and there was a lot wrong. And just thank God I only thought of it and just went on.
Yeah.
Because, and now I'm a Christian, which I was not then, and that just never would cross my mind to killing is wrong, but also it's huge. It's the last thing you can possibly do to yourself, for yourself. And it's, no, horrible. What? Oh, for why not to talk about it. Yeah, I know we kind of got off the track there, but
Bill, right? Bill, is this something you guys deal with a lot in your organization? Yeah. Yeah. I just imagine getting that kind of news would be so overwhelming that I mean, because I know it's crossed my mind in certain situations. I can understand why people would go to that because what now? Mm, yeah,
well, and just
synchronicity, huh?
um to go back to me saying or thinking I was going to kill myself, I didn't have a clue what it really meant.
Yeah,
You
right.
It's just kind of toying with the idea that'll fix them, or I would just get out of this mess kind of thing. But to, well, yeah, that's a little over dramatic, but
But I think that happens. I mean, my sister had a friend in high school she and her boyfriend had been dating for 3 years. He broke up with her and she hung herself. And I don't know that she thought through how permanent that is. It was just, I don't want to feel this anymore.
well, and how awful it is for the
Yeah.
loved one left. To me, that I would just never do it for that reason. I mean, how awful and ugly and terrible, and you can never erase that and make it go away.
No, but I do think, and this is something because I've known a lot of people who have had that happen where they've had loved ones die. We forget that that person who tries that or does that isn't able to think about anybody else. When
Right.
I had a really close call probably 8 years ago where yeah, I knew it.
Okay, group one, Brandon, Lisa, Louie, and Rebecca. Why don't we talk about it?
Lisa, did you write it down, or do you want me to go ahead and speak to it? Okay. So
Yeah,
some
I
of the
wrote it
topics.
down.
Did you want to go ahead and be the reporter then?
Okay, yeah. Sorry, okay. So, because of like guilt and shame of like wanting to commit suicide, and because people don't want somebody to try to stop them. Also, like the stigma around trying to commit suicide or the thoughts of suicide or suicide ideation, which is something I guess the system isn't addressing the problem. So if they're not going to address the problem, why talk about it? And because of like you are put against your will, sometimes if you do tell somebody, then you're afraid of what happens next. Like the 72-hour hold in the mental institution, and like how you'll be treated after admitting wanting to commit suicide. And talking about suicide, we think might trigger somebody into wanting to commit suicide. And that's all.
Okay, good. Group two, Bree, Greg, Matt, and Tiffany.
Ours was fear of being ignored. It's really taboo. Fear of putting a plan in motion. Stigma between self-harm and suicidal ideation and the difference between the two. A lot of people think of it as a sin or satanic. Cultural teachings or religious teachings. Fear of police. Fear of being hurt physically. And being put on a mental health hold.
Thank you. Dan, Derek, and Jessica.
No. We were kind of talking in our group about like sometimes people don't even talk about it like beforehand at all.
Yeah, there's no like ideation, there's no hinting, there's no nothing. They just do it, you know. And like I was telling him a story, one of my friends was, I saw him at a Halloween party, and 2 days later, I got a message that he hung himself the next day, you know, after the Halloween party. He's totally fine, totally caught his wife off guard, caught it, you know, everybody was just in complete shock. No one was like, yeah, you know, he was struggling, battling some things. No, everybody's like, he had a great job, wonderful kids, happy marriage, and he just woke up one morning and did it, you know. So there's a lot, like a line between, you know, people that are talking about it and like people that are trying to get attention from it, you know, like, hey, I want that love, I want some attention, like help me, like a cry for help, you know. And other people just do it, you know. And that's just pretty much what we talked about, you know, and a couple other things as well. So
yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Okay, and last group. Who's the last group? Bill, Heidi, and Justine. Yeah, great. Those are some great points. Really great points. Lots of reasons we don't talk about it. Oftentimes, the reality of suicide feels uncomfortable merely because we don't understand it or we don't know how to act when we are confronted by it. Fear is often the largest deterrent, keeping peers, friends, and loved ones from speaking up. And that fear could come from many different things. It could be fear of making it worse. It could be fear of speaking it into existence. It could be fear of just that ick, right? Expecting rational thinking from an irrational thinker. Make space for a non-judgmental approach. It isn't necessarily the nature of the loss or the stressor that is as important as the individual's experience of these feeling unbearable. So let's try to understand suicide now. Suicide is an attempt to solve a problem of intense emotional pain with impaired problem-solving skills. Intolerable mental anguish, and individuals of all races, creeds, incomes, and education levels die by suicide. There is no typical suicide victim. Could I get somebody to read this slide, please?
Defining suicide. Suicide ideation refers to talking about, considering, or planning suicide. Attempted suicide is a potentially self-injurious act with at least some intent to die as a result of the act. It's the alternative to pain. My only worth in life is what I can do for others. What am I good for? If that is gone, what do I have left? It can be a form of communication for people who are suicidal. Suicide is defined as death caused by self-directed injurious behavior with the intent to die.
Yep. Usually not saying I want to die, they're just saying I don't want to live this way, right? %90 of people who die by suicide are suffering from one or more psychiatric disorders: major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, depressive phase, alcohol or substance use, schizophrenia, personality disorders such as borderline personality disorder. And at the same time, 85 to 98% of people diagnosed with depression do not die by suicide. 80 to 97% of people diagnosed with bipolar illness do not die by suicide, and 85 to 94% of people diagnosed with schizophrenia do not die by suicide. All right, before I play this video, let me warn you, this can be a little overwhelming for some people. So if it is, go ahead and mute your system and just watch for it to be over. Y'all know Anderson Cooper?
No, who is that?
Yeah.
This is Anderson Cooper.
He's
And
like Dateline. Is it Dateline or something? Or
he's a CNN.
Voices in my head, and
he's CNN reporter.
You suck, and they know it. Did you get this right?
okay. So I did this test for 3 minutes, and I did not get a single one. It's very hard to concentrate if it's like music or something constant. It's easy, but people talking to you is very difficult. So now I'm going to be asked a series of questions by our producer, Susan, and these are basically a series of questions that a person would be asked if they were being admitted to a hospital.
Can you tell me what day it is?
Yeah, it's Sunday, June, I don't know, what's the date, 7th?
So I'm going to say 5 numbers, and I want you to repeat them back to me after I'm done.
Okay.
5, 23, 67, 2, 76.
5, 23, 67, something 76.
I'm going to say 5 words. You don't have to repeat them, but just listen to them. Cat, book, cigar, damage, and rain.
Make you okay.
Can you name the last 4 presidents of the United States?
Okay for you to be
Barack
here.
Obama, George
Come
Bush,
here. Here. Right here.
Bill Clinton, and George Bush.
Hear it? Hear
So
it
those
now?
5 words I said before, can you remember any of them?
Here. Hear it.
No. It's hard when, because sometimes voices are like whispering, and sometimes they're aggressive, and sometimes they're kind of comforting. And
Hear the tree.
but again, with people kind of talking to you all the time,
It's okay.
it's hard.
Don't worry. An hour later.
So I'm just on a boat,
You all right?
origami, following these instructions.
Hey, it'll be okay. Near. Get near.
Shut up!
I want to talk back to the voices now, but it's really distracting. It's,
Do not do it. Do not touch that stuff. Eyes down. You suck! What are you looking at? This is easy. You want to touch that?
I can't do this.
Keep your hand down. Keep your eyes down. Just do it, Stuart. Just do it. Filthy mind. Leave it alone.
It's also frustrating because they're telling me I can't do it, and so I didn't do a very good job with the vote. But it's really hard to focus when kind of people are whispering to you and talking to you.
Just come clear. Come near to me. Come near for help.
Hey, do you have yesterday's paper? Yesterday's New York Times? No? Okay, I'll just get today's. It's incredibly distracting on the street to have somebody talking in your head, and it makes you feel completely isolated from everyone else around you, and you don't want to engage in conversation with other people. You kind of find yourself wanting to engage in conversation with a voice in your head because they're constantly being really negative and talking to you, and everything they're saying relates to things that you're actually doing. They're criticizing things you're doing. It's like it's like you have a chorus watching you and commenting on what you're doing, and you can't help it. I mean, I literally find myself wanting to kind of respond to them, kind of tell them to be quiet, and it's incredibly unpleasant. This is a very, very unpleasant experiment. It's really, it's eye-opening because it kind of really shows you what other people must be going through who deal with this on a regular basis. But also, like, I cannot wait to take these headphones off because it's really depressing. It's very negative. It makes you feel very, very negative. Yeah, it's very creepy. I want it to stop.
Eyes down. Back up. Stand up now. I'll count you off. I'll count 20, 30, 40. Stand up now. Walk away.
You're okay.
Walk now.
Pacify. Pacify. On to pacify. All the way to make it home.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Living Well with Schizophrenia channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over 10 signs that I'm slipping into psychosis.
What are your thoughts?
That was intense.
I have a client that I do healthcare too. We were at a movies and like this voice came out of her, and she's an older, like about, hold on a minute, about like 80, like she's about 60 something years old, and we went to the movies and like this voice came out of her, and I thought she was talking to me. She's like, no, she's like, I'm just talking to the voices that are in my head. Sometimes they tell me to that I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm like, so I start talking to her. I was like, you're not that, you're smart. I start just speaking positive life over her, and so I prayed with her. I was like, can I pray with you? And from there, I just told her, like, I just guided her with prayers, and anytime that she feels like a thought, like to call me or whatnot. She calls me a lot now, but like but they were really real for her. Like she was telling me like the thoughts that she hears, and like they're different voices. There's sometimes a man voice, a woman voice, so, and it sounds different. I was just like, wow, like it's a real thing for people. Like, it's like, to me it's like um just because like I've gotten into more with the word of the Lord and how oppression and demonic stuff can come in through opening different ways of life that we've entered in on our own way. But she never really had anybody to speak life, or, speak the word of God to her, or teach her who God is, and loving, and that God is love and all that stuff. She never really had that. She didn't have it from her own parents, so she just like, it became something that was comforting to her, that she chose to listen to it. So she gave it permission to like listen to it. Like she was telling me, like she gave it permission.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but why? And to not feel lonely and to talk to and whatnot, even if it's a mental health problem for him.
So we have a resident who hears voices and talks to them. And I don't think I realized how uncomfortable that must be for her all the time. And the fact that she doesn't really talk to us. And I've mentioned it before to people that, like, she talks more to the voices in her head than she does to us. And having listened to that, I kind of get why now. It makes more sense. Of course, it's overwhelming.
What's crazy, Jesse, is that's probably just like a fraction of what things could really be for people. You know what I mean? Like as far as the intensity and as far as the dialogue and as far as the, you know what I mean? Like what it could be actual things that people have told them that they keep hearing over and over and over again, which is mainly, it's probably what the majority of it is. You know what I mean? Just like how that, and the thing, it was, you hear him say, you suck, you're not going to finish. Like all that shit sticks with people, I mean, it's just, some are able to handle it and some aren't, and like I said, I hear stuff all the time. I'm constantly going, what I mean? I used to keep myself up at night because of it, stressing about different situations, hearing things, things that people have said to me resonate, it's just, that's only a fraction of what it could be. You know what I mean? So that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Well, and considering that sometimes the voices, and she's told us this, the voices are telling her to harm herself or to harm other people, or that there are people trying to harm her, like that must be terrifying. I understanding this in the perspective of suicide, it makes sense why people would just want to get away from it.
It's a real thing.
So schizophrenia is something that my great grandmother and my great uncle had, and so that's always kind of been like a fear of mine. And going through self-harm and going through attempting suicide, even though I don't have schizophrenia, I still hear voices, and a lot of it has to do with my PTSD. I will actually literally hear the voices of like my dead grandfather just ripping me a new one for telling my grandma to go to hell, or when he found out that I was pregnant and forced me into an abortion, the things that he said at that time, I still hear his voice. It's still his voice. And what it is the brain's kind of shorting out, in a sense, and it's mixing old memories with reality of that moment in time that you're actually in versus what you've experienced in the past. And it can be very real. I've recovered greatly from my PTSD, but I couldn't drive by certain places because I'd no longer be in my car driving my kids to school. I would be getting beat up on that street corner, or I would be being abused over there in that department store. I was no longer here in reality, and it is a very scary disconnect. And when you suffer from things like schizophrenia or PTSD, where you can no longer discern between your actual reality in that moment or the falseness of memories, or outside influences from mental illness or from your past, that becomes really scary. And if you don't have the right people around you supporting you who understand what you're going through when you don't understand what you're going through, and who can come alongside you and help you through that moment of, is this real or not, and getting that reassurance of what is real, that you are not crazy. Even for a schizophrenic, we're all human. No one wants to hear you're crazy, you're hearing voices. That's like one of the worst things you could ever say to anybody. I don't care if that's their reality or not. Don't say that to them, because that can push them towards like, okay, well, if I'm crazy and there's no hope for me to be able to discern what is real and what is not, I can't handle this. So what he was experiencing was, in a sense, very sucky. But something I want to bring to the table is those were strangers' voices to him in that clip. Most people who are suicidal or schizophrenic or have mental disorders or do substance use and get that super severe paranoia of hearing voices and everything, it's usually a familiar voice with familiar words, like he was saying, that have been spoken to us in the past. But it's not just that has been spoken to us, it's things that we've watched on TV. It's the kind of music that we listen to. Anything that we perceive auditorily is what we're having repeated in our head, as though it's really being said, like I'm speaking right now to you guys.
Does this give you guys all a little bit of different perspective on people that are suffering with schizophrenia? I mean, we've all seen people, and most of us probably guilty at some point or another, going, that person's a loon or something along those lines. But when you kind of experience it like that, it gives you a little bit different perspective on it, maybe some compassion and understanding. Yeah. You guys ready for your break? Let's take a break until 7:30. Welcome back, everybody.
Hola.
So what are some potential signs of mental illness?
Can you repeat that?
What are some potential signs of mental illness? Substance use, yes, Matt. What else?
Instability, regardless of if it's with paying your bills, getting to work, um, being in contact with people on a regular basis, recovery coaches, therapists, things like that, or even like friends and family. They're very inconsistent.
Try that one more time, Bill. I'm gonna mute everybody's microphone real quick.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of feedback and outside noise. So you have been muted. If you need to talk, you'll have to unmute yourself. So some signs of mental illness. What do you guys got?
Depression or varying, from the usual normal modes of behavior.
Yeah.
Withdrawing from other people.
Withdrawal. Okay. Lacking in self-care. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
What else?
Confused thinking.
Confused thinking. Okay.
Like extreme worry or fear, extreme fears of worry, I guess.
Yeah. Extreme
Mood
fears.
changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think really erratic kind of behavior. Like sometimes that seems illogical.
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. So mental illness refers collectively to all diagnosable mental disorders, health conditions involving significant changes in thinking, emotion, and or behavior, distress and or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. It's a medical problem just like heart disease or diabetes. Mental health involves effective functioning in daily activities, resulting in productive activities, work, school, and caregiving, healthy relationships, and the ability to adapt to change and cope with adversity. Suicidal ideation. In the past year, suicidal thoughts and behaviors among U.S. adults in 2019, there were 12 million adults seriously thought about suicide. 3.5 million adults made a plan, and 1.4 million adults attempted suicide, and 2 million adults made no plans and attempted suicide. Who was that was saying this earlier? Derek was talking about this. A study from Dassenheimer asked people who were seen in a hospital following a suicide attempt how long before the suicidal act they first started thinking about attempting it. Almost 50% of them was less than 10 minutes. That's pretty.
That's an insane stat.
Yeah.
It's very eye-opening.
So what that tells us is like what we stated at the very beginning, intervention starts long before the crisis. It has to. Many people will never let on what they are feeling or planning. The paradox is that the people who are most intent on suicide know that they have to keep their plans to themselves if they are to carry the act out, says Dr. Miller. Thus, the people most in need of help may be the toughest ones to save. Suicide happens long before the crisis. How many of you have heard of the contagion theory? So the contagion theory, suicide contagion, is the exposure to suicide or suicidal behaviors with one's family, peer group, or through media reports of suicide, and can increase suicide and suicidal behaviors. Direct or indirect exposure to suicidal behavior has increased suicidal behavior in persons at risk for suicide, especially in adolescents and young adults. And it can occur in clusters like the LGBTQIA+, first responders, military, social circles, and other cultures. One study found that the suicide of Robin Williams touched off a 9.85% increase in suicides by the following December, resulting in an excess of 1,841 suicide cases. Irrational thinking from an irrational thinker. Fight, flight, freeze. Looking back, it's strange to know that I thought I was being rational in my decisions to take my own life. Through and through, it truly felt like the right thing to do in my heart. This is from Karen, who is an 8-time attempted survivor. How you guys feeling?
So since no one wants to answer that, I wanted to touch on, as soon as we went to break, I remembered a story about my ex-husband that my soon-to-be ex-husband that he told me about in his drug use. So he actually called the cops on himself, with him being the only one in the home. He called the cops because he had been convinced that someone had been murdered in his house, like brutally murdered. He heard the lady screaming, he saw the blood, like it went to a very scary extent for him, and it was so real in his psychosis due to his drug use that he literally called the cops on himself. So like, just keep that in mind, you know, when you're dealing with your clients. Like, this stuff's very, very real to the people who experience it, to an extent that most people would never even comprehend. Like, before he had shared that story with me, and I'm actually really good friends with his best friend at the time, and his best friend has shared this story with me. It's a very real thing, and it's very, very hard for people to understand or recognize what is reality and what is not. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the 5 points coping skill, but if not, I highly recommend like diving into it, practicing it yourself. It's you get people to reground themselves into their reality by asking them 5 things that they feel with their body, 5 things that they hear with their ears, 5 things that they taste, 5 things that they smell, 5 things that they see. I've found in my experience through people using this with me doing this with myself, and me teaching others, that sight is the least important. What they hear is the second least important. The other senses are usually the senses that are not as severely affected as far as what goes into things that people experience during the suicidal process, during self-harming process, when they are in a psychosis due to drug use, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, the 5 points is a great grounding technique, actually. So what are some characteristics of suicide?
Death.
Test. Not exactly what I'm looking for, but yeah, that would be. It's an alternative
Of
to a
suicide.
problem perceived. What?
You stated of suicide.
Yeah, that's.
Sorry, I was being literal, and
Yeah,
sometimes it
and
cracks me up.
I guess this title should be more like, what are the characteristics of suicidal
Ideation.
The suicidal process.
Yeah, yeah.
It's an alternative to a problem perceived as unsolvable by any other means. Okay? Viewing suicide from this perspective has important implications. Just as someone may get a temporary high from a drug, they may obtain temporary attention, support, or even popularity after a suicide attempt. Suicide can be seen as less than a wish to die than a wish to escape the intense emotional pain generated from what appears to be an inescapable solution. I don't want to die, I want to end the pain. Suicide prevention is understanding suicide. Will somebody read this slide, please?
A suicidal person feels two things simultaneously. Part of them wants to die, and part of them wants to live, and we must acknowledge both parts. We unequivocally support the side that wants to live. This can't be done by ignoring or dismissing that side that wants to die. Many suicides occur in a period of improvement when the person has the energy and despairing thoughts return and turn into destructive action. World Health Organization.
Yeah, it actually, I think they were covering that in another slide. So suicide is a form of communication. For people who are suicidal, normal communication has generally broken down. The suicide attempt may be the person's way of sending a message or reacting to the isolation that they feel because their communication skills are ineffective or they don't know how to ask for help. So let's talk about risk factors now. How do we know if someone is at risk of suicide? We're going to do this in the breakout rooms. So in your breakout rooms, make a list of risk factors. What thing put a person at risk of suicide? Seven minutes enough again?
Yeah.
Matt, I don't know if we have skits in this training. Maybe I'll have to look and think of a way to make one for tomorrow.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't know. I mean, risk.
I didn't hear the last what he said. It was kind of like low what he said. So what did he say?
We're supposed to just come up with risk factors for suicide,
Risk factors.
like life circumstances, divorce, death in the family, death of a child, loss of job, loss of, or lifelong problems with mental and illness. Yeah.
That's risk factors to suicide.
Yeah, what are risk factors? Substance abuse.
And other addictions too, like my former husband, he was a sex addict and he was leading a double life for a long time. And I think it just got to be too much for him. The double life.
Yeah.
And the mental illness, undiagnosed mental illness.
Like chronic pain. Like chronic pain, like if you have like severe like rheumatoid arthritis, like chronic pain that that either you got doctors are telling you got to take medication, which is just numbing you. It's not really healing the pain. So then those thoughts you just don't want to live no more because you're tired of feeling the pain because it's such a chronic pain that those are suicidal factors too. Bullying, people bullying you.
Yeah.
Not
Social
feeling loved by
media.
your family members because like you might have a mom and dad that's stressed and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh, I wish you weren't here. Then that person starts to feel those thoughts and then they're like well, I don't want to be more stressful to my parents, so I don't want to be here now. And that dad will give you less, if I can eliminate the problem for you. Low self-esteem. Yeah.
I think like a low emotional IQ, not knowing how to recognize your feelings or express them.
Yeah. Emotional IQ.
I think that's like thinking like in your family, like in the Mexican and the black culture, like we're raised like you shut up, you don't talk back. What stays in the house stays in the house. So we keep that to ourselves. You mean that we're not able to express our feelings because we're supposed to be this tough. That's just how we were raised. You mean, but the truth is like we don't know how to express our feelings because not because of a low IQ. It's just like that's what our culture was it demanded dominated on us for. Yeah, because they're dealing a identity, not knowing who they are inside. I mean, I don't know my opinion. I'm like, if you're a man, you're a man. You're a woman, you're a woman. So those feelings, you're getting false feelings in your head telling you that you're this. So it's not adding up to what society's people are telling you because we're viewing you as this person because this is what you are on the outside. But you have the voices that are like that man listening to those voices telling you shut up this or might be a man and this voice is telling you you're a girl, you're a girl, and you're a girl, and you're not on the outside. You're like, no, I'm not. I got this part, but I have a man's body. But there's mental health issues that it's like demonic oppression trying to alter your identity for who you're not. You were made perfect in every image of who you were born, which you were born with. That's what you were made. But there's like oppression and all this society trying to say this and that your feelings. Like if you're this, when really you could be having someone telling you that you're this and you're not. Just like I mean, it doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. It's factor. It's true. It's proven fact. So I think people put that in their heads to make them believe that that's why someone's suicidal. I just think for me, it goes through the word of the Lord.
Okay, risk
Yeah, anything for the
factors.
sake of the Lord
Risk
is
factors.
brilliant.
Military is a risk factor. PTSD is a risk
Yeah,
factor. PTSD,
Man,
being in the military.
well, if somebody got blown up by an IUD. I mean, that yeah. No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
PTSD is definitely a big one.
yeah.
And even just the stress of being in the military, even if you're not deployed, a lot of the assignments are it's a hard life. Like any kind of first responder, any of that kind of stuff, firefighters, EMTs, you see just a lot of junk that
ER,
it's hard
emergency
to get out of your
room.
brain.
So, group one, Bill, Dan, Jessica, and Rebecca. What do you have as risk factors?
Loss of job, mental illness, health conditions, chronic pain, bullying, low self-esteem, cultural messages, low emotional IQ, social stigmas, military, first responder, PTSD.
Good. Okay, good. Group two, Brandon, Bree, Derek, and Greg.
All right, you're gonna have to forgive me. I hope I can read my writing here. Losing family, being lonely, feeling worthless, being alone, hopelessness, just any kind of loss, whether it's financial or it's family, or it's just losing all of your items in a divorce, just loss in general. Sorry, see here. And substance use disorder. And that's what we got.
Okay, good. Group three, Heidi, Justine, and Tiffany.
We talked about traumatic events in your life, buying a gun when you don't usually do that, giving away all your stuff, mood changes, grief, withdrawing from family and friends, negative life events, family history of suicide. And this was an interesting one. Feelings of victimization. You set yourself up for failure, even in the face of good things happening. Like I can't do it, or I won't be able to do it.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah. That's what I wrote down. Other ladies, you have more?
No, I think you got them all, Heidi.
Okay.
Okay, last group, Lisa, Louie, and Matt.
We got increase of substance use, like the literal vocalization of, wanting to commit suicide, or like passively aggressively, like jokingly saying, no, I just want to die. Just like laughing about it. I know I used to do that, just like, haha, and everybody would be like, that's not funny, And then decrease in quality of life, rapid increase of like social media posts for like attention and validation, shopping therapy, which leads to financial burden that might make everything worse, isolation, apathy, just basically being engaged or disengaged or hyper motivated. Like some people all of a sudden want to go to the gym and get healthy, but it's kind of like a cry for help, like low self-esteem type thing. That something underneath is bothering them. Yeah, and that's all.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Good list, guys. Everybody, let's take a look at our slides here. Some life circumstances may put a person at risk for suicide that is not exclusive to mental illness. Risk factors may include family history, substance use, intoxication, access to firearms or other lethal means, a serious or chronic medical illness, gender, history of trauma or abuse, prolonged stress, isolation, age, that being under 24 or over 65, recent tragedy or loss of any kind, agitation and sleep deprivation, and culture, like veterans, first responders, Latinx, African American, or LGBTQ. You know, Bill, I'd wondered the same thing because it said that the highest risk, the highest, like for the age group somewhere in between, somewhere around 24 to 44 was like the highest suicide rate. So I don't know how that works out here. That being under 24 and over 65 is a risk factor, but or maybe it's the other way around, that under that and over that it's not a risk factor. I don't know.
Well, I find it fascinating that none of us said someone who's really funny. We mentioned Robin Williams earlier, and there was no signs, according to those who were really close to him, that he was going to commit suicide. But something that also follows up with that is that a lot of people who are depressed or who lack self-worth become like the class clowns, so to speak. And so those people are also super high risk for suicide because they go out of their way to be funny because they are so depressed and because they are feeling so bad about themselves that if they can make somebody else laugh, then that gives them that worth that they seem that to feel like they're lacking. Yeah. And I believe, how old was he? He was like late 50s, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. When he committed suicide?
I'm not exactly sure. It sounds right to me, somewhere around there. Having engaged in one or more acts of attempted suicide or self-harm is the single most important predictor of death by suicide. Can somebody please read this slide?
Risk levels.
Risk levels.
I got it. Risk levels, non-categorical, categorical evidence informed. Someone's risk level can change over time. Risk status, relatively permanent, a group of variables that are relatively permanent. Examples include Men tend to die at higher rates of suicide than non-male. A previous suicide attempt is a strong predictor of future attempts. Loss of a loved one. A person lives with suicidal ideation. The LGBTQ community is at higher risk.
Can somebody read risk levels 2, 3, and 4?
9. I don't know. 8.
Thank you. Here's that saying again. We are all gatekeepers. Suicide prevention is caring. Suicide prevention occurs long before the crisis. All threats of harm should be taken seriously. Okay, somebody please read this slide.
Suicide prevention is awareness. Protective factors are conditions or attributes, skills, strength, resources, supports, or coping strategies in individuals, families, communities, or larger society that help people deal more efficiently with stressful events and mitigate or eliminate risk in families and communities.
Okay. So breakout rooms this time, you're going to make a list of protective factors. All right. The factors, you got 7.
Hello. No, I used to stream during COVID, and because all that stuff all of COVID made me go buy really good stuff to do this stuff with, because I just like it. Yeah. So what was it? The preventing factors, right? Was the question. Protective. Having a peer coach. That could be a protective factor. Like that.
Yeah,
Oh
great.
man.
Yeah. Good friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we go. That's even better. Nah. Yeah. And I know Matt, he will say something about one of my boxing coaches too. Activities.
That it?
Reducing access to lethal means of suicide.
Having fun with your coworkers at work.
Learning new life skills that may be leading, you know what I mean? Like help the coach helping the coachee learn life skills that are yeah. Support groups, yep.
Going to school.
Hey, boy.
But you never know. Someone might want to go back to school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, fellas. I'm just sitting on the floor right now, being a bum.
All right, we got 15 things.
I think we've covered a lot of the protective factors, you know.
At least you guys.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was in my previous group, and his phone was acting up. Music, be on a positive side.
Yeah.
Video.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did it
Sucks.
say?
I have to switch back to my phone. Wi-Fi sucks here. Nah, I was reading what Greg was typing. He ain't the only one on Wi-Fi right now, and my Wi-Fi is doing good where I'm at.
Good boy. I like that. All right. Is Greg gonna be back?
Yeah, he's already back. All right. Group 1, Bree, Dan, Jessica, and Rebecca. What are your protective factors?
Okay, for our list, we said sobriety, going to counseling, learning grounding techniques, connection to others like safe people, like support groups or things like that. Anger management or other education kind of programs. Getting a pet, increasing your window of tolerance, doing self-care, life balance, learning boundaries, disconnecting from people that are unsafe, either like church or some kind of higher power, medications, if you have mental illness, getting on the right medicine and making sure you take your medications, and like different apps for your phone that'll like help with reminding you to do whatever, like self-care or grounding or that kind of stuff.
Good list. Group 2, Bill, Brandon, Louie, and did you say Greg was in there too? Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, good. Great stuff. I like that, something to look forward to, for sure. Room 3, Derek, Justine, and Matt.
Outside has already been said. Just embracing the spirit of prevention starts before the crisis, and from the scope or the lens of what can we do as peer coaches, and that's tough. You have to have an availability and an awareness, but the other side of that coin immediately is we don't know, and all the unknown, unseen, we just don't see it coming suicides. So how do you prevent the things you don't even see? And that's the crux. But that's what we got.
Yeah, and like that one slide was showing us, almost 50% of suicide attempts were made within 10 minutes from the first thought.
That's probably one of the scariest statistics I think I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's literally like bone chilling if you think about that. You know what I mean? Like it's like I know enough about suicide that it's usually like that. You know what I mean? It's not a drawn out months, thought about this for months. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what? I'm done with this, and then they do it. And that stat literally proves it. So it's the scariest stat I think I've seen to date.
All right, last group: Heidi, Lisa, and Tiffany.
On the note of like what Derek was just saying, it starts before, the ideations or whatever. I just feel like we feel like being like conscious of others' feelings all the time, because the world we live in, especially, it's a very cruel place these days. Just like I feel like going out of your way sometimes, people's ideations start outside of their own thoughts and how they feel. It can be literally the gesture of somebody else, and them going out of their way, can help prevent that. And it's sometimes all people need is just love. You know what I mean? So just being more kind and cautious and courteous to like everybody's struggle is honestly, I feel like, where it all could start. And in a world perspective, like if we were all just more kind to each other, like that's really where it starts, just being more kind and courteous of everybody's struggle and the demons that they're fighting, and just be kind and go out of your way for them, or to anybody. Just show, that you're a genuine person.
Random acts of kindness to total strangers.
Yes.
And being non-judgmental and a caring friend, and be genuine and honestly be there for someone and show them that you are.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff you guys already talked about that we did.
Support groups. I like Winnie the Pooh. They've got some good like little slides that show kindness and what a difference it makes. So prevention is awareness. Suicide prevention.
Yeah.
Protective factors are characteristics that reduce the likelihood that someone will attempt suicide. Awareness of and access to health services, caring friends and someone to trust and talk to, spiritual wellness, coping skills and life skills, consistency, resiliency, nutrition, diet, exercise, and a safe place to live or sleep. Purpose and hope for the future, that would be something to look forward to. Internal and external capital.
It didn't have work on there, like having a job or going to school, because that going to school helps with getting a job / career, which helps with financials, which helps with stability, which helps with nutrition and diet, having a stable place to live, etc.
It helps with having a sense of purpose, right? And
Yeah, and having a sense of purpose.
That is our stopping slide for the night. How are you guys doing?
Good.
How are you like?
What's crazy? It's good. It's just like, it's eye-opening really a lot. Like, I already do this because I live in a sober living house and everybody's just so grumpy over here, and it's just like, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, y'all need to get on my vibe, like, because I can't. You're like rubbing off on me. It's like, I started a jar that I asked everybody to write what they're grateful for every day, if it's one thing, because I learned the stuff in rehab. It's like, what you were unskilled at, what you were skilled at, like what you motivates you, you know what I mean? I was like, can one of you guys just pick something off this list every day, like, and put it in the jar? Because if anybody didn't know this, you're gonna know now that when you show gratitude, that it changes the chemical in your brain. There's more to it than that, but like your chemical balance in your brain, like the more you show gratitude, and it's also like a manifestation thing too. Like the more positive gravitates to you, you know what I mean? So like you gravitate what your mental health state is. So like if you're an angry person, a lot of angry people are gonna attract you, you know what I mean? Have you ever seen that? Like, I just can't get away from like this type of person. And it's because that's how you are. Like you need to work on that on yourself so that you don't attract that to yourself. You know what I mean? So if you want to be a positive person, you gotta get deep into, you know, your character defaults and work on like those things that make you an unpositive person in a way, even if you think you're positive. Huh?
And to add on to that, like that's also where like words are so important. Not just the words we speak to other people, but the words we speak to ourselves, about ourselves, about other people. I fell in my recovery and my self-harm right before Thanksgiving, and it's because I fell out of I have like 8 different groups where we do gratuity. We do our gratitudes, we list our gratitudes, and I fell out of doing that for a very short amount of time, and it had such a negative impact on me because I wasn't putting out there those positive things, those things that I was grateful for, you know, those things that make, you know, a crappy moment okay, and makes the next moment, you know, worth bearing through this moment to get to. And it really had a negative impact on me.
It's good that you recognize that.
Yeah, well, and I also noticed like my groups had stopped messaging during that time as well. So it was not only, you know, that I wasn't putting it out there, I also wasn't receiving it from others, which is a huge part of why, like, when I go out in public, I look for the most miserable, saddest, angriest looking person, and I find something about that person to compliment them on.
Awesome.
You
Good
know,
for you.
yeah, and like you can just see that instant change in how it positively affects them.
It
you
makes a
know.
difference. Yeah. Random acts of
Yeah.
kindness are really important.
Yeah, super important. So
And these
And they're
this holiday
contagious.
season. Go ahead.
yeah.
The holiday season is tough for a lot of people that struggle with substance use or mental health. It's a tough time of year for people.
Well,
Yeah.
something
That
that
is. Go ahead.
Eric, you work in this field, but this is something I've seen like personally in my life with mental illness and substance abuse. Around October of every year, those people in my life that suffered from mental illnesses or substance use disorder, it was usually right around October that they'd start really fading. Like you'd start seeing the warning signs and the red flags in September, but October is where they just start spinning like out of control. And then they would come back around January, February. Is that something that you see common in your line of work?
Yeah, it's common. I think it has something to do with the dang time change.
Right, agreed.
And the holidays, just not having their family during the holidays, you know what I mean? Because that's where a lot of holidays come. And it's like you start to like think about, you know, the people that you lost, and just like people going downward spirals a lot of that time because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I saw someone message on there like the time change, you know, the sun going down earlier and coming up later. I don't know if we're going to cover this in this class tomorrow, but actually Alaska has one of the highest rates of suicide and depression and other things along that line, because 6 months out of the year, they literally don't see one ray of sunshine. Like, it's completely dark 24/7 up there. You know, and so yeah, like being out in the sun has a huge effect on mental health, substance use, and suicide.
Okay, so
Bring the
that
light to the
is
people in
our
the dark.
stopping spot for the night. You guys are free to go. We'll see you at 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Eric.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
But boy, if we could just do one and do it well. And because it's peer-led and peer recovery, guess what's gonna happen? Then he takes it to somebody, right? And then he takes it to somebody, and then he takes it to somebody, and then he takes it to her, and she takes it to her, and she takes it to her, and guess what? We got a whole new generation of young folks. Instead of being Generation Lost and Generation X and all this other stuff we calling them, man, Generation Found.
I think I asked too many questions, and I know I'll never understand how to help all those around me when I am just one man. And there's so many who feel helpless, that there's just too much to be done. But I know it makes all the difference. The revolution has begun. If I can help just one, and you can help just one, and she can help just one. If we can help just one, I put my heart into my labor, and I'll burn my back under the sun. I'll share the harvest with all my neighbors. I'll work until my hands are numb. If I can help just one, and he can help just one, and she can help just one, and he can help just one. I always gave to the collection, always hoping I'd get something back. So now I'll offer this reflection to all the mourners dressed in black. Lord knows it's so hard to pray when mercy only comes to some. But we seek forgiveness when we rise each day, because our work is never done. If we can help just one, if we can help just one,
Good evening. How are you?
Doing all right. How are you, Eric?
I'm good. Good. So what did we talk about yesterday?
Suicide prevention.
All right.
Yeah.
Factor. Yeah.
And protective factors.
Protective factors. Yeah. When's the right time to do an intervention? People. Suicide prevention starts long before the crisis, right? Yep. That's right, Matt. We talked about why we don't talk about it.
It's scary.
It's scary. There was a lot of reasons we don't talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We watched that video with Anderson Cooper. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Gives you a whole different view on what they have to deal with. Okay, well, are you guys ready to start the last day? Is there any questions about anything that we've gone over so far? Can I get somebody to read this slide?
Warning signs. The warning signs of suicide are indicators that a person may be in danger or at risk of suicide or suicide ideation and may urgently need help. It can be easy to miss the warning signs if we are not paying attention.
Okay, so we're going to start right off with a breakout room, and you guys make a list of warning signs.
No skit?
Now, I'll tell you what, if your group wants to, you can come back and do it as a skit.
He's fiending for a skit. Yeah,
Well,
he's fiending for a skit, that's for sure.
well, Derek and Bill, you're both in the group with Matt, so
Of course.
you got 7 minutes. Come up with a list of warning signs, or if you're in Matt's group and you want to do a skit, you're welcome to it.
Dude, how did that happen?
I am not doing a skit. I'm not doing one. Like the instant I saw your guys' names, I was like, God damn it.
Fuck,
Oh,
that was
fantastic.
That was funny. That's a perfect fucking start to this.
Oof. We just gotta. All right, everybody, stick together. The finish line is just ahead.
Yeah, for real.
This is heavy.
Yeah.
It is very.
Yeah, it's still a touchy subject for me, so like I'm not enjoying this one at all.
Mm-hmm. Mhm. Yeah, that's crazy. And like it's cool to have like a safe space, you know, and like be comfortable enough to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like because, like I said, most of the time people don't talk about it. They just, like I said at the beginning of this class, I was like, people don't that are gonna do it, they
Yeah.
do it. They don't tell anybody. They don't. The people that do like make hints, or like I had a buddy make a post on Facebook, and other friends message like, "Hey, I love you guys," stuff like that. Like they don't plan on doing it. They just want the attention. They want the love. They want that emptiness that they feel to be filled for that, even if it's for that little short moment. You know what I mean? That's why that was my yeah, that stat was mind blowing. 50% of people that do it don't don't like say anything. Yeah,
Yeah, it really is. That's my experience with it. There was kind of signs looking back on it. My dad committed, and it's okay. I'm still kind of dealing with it, but he was
well,
kind
you're
of
always gonna deal with it, but you're
yeah.
accepting it, and you know what I mean. You're doing great with it. I mean, you're doing the right things to handle situations like that. You know what I mean? To help yourself, and I'm proud of you for that. That's huge. So to have somebody so close. I know other people have had close ones too. And it's crazy. It's awesome to see like you, and I know Matt's been affected by it, and everybody else in this class has one way or another been affected.
Yeah,
It's cool to see you guys. To see all of us come together for this. To be understanding and know that this is like a safe space to be able to talk about stuff, because I know it's hard for me to open up about shit. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, same here.
Look how limited this is, though. That's 4 of us in a Zoom meeting who we've all been in classes before. Have we
Yeah.
really been able to open up about suicide? Right? Yeah,
Since
and that's an affinity we've created. I think there's such a stigma, like the suicide almost like begets itself because nobody talks about it. What are the clear boundaries around it? Because I don't even
Right.
talk about how mad I am about it. I don't even feel I have space to vent about how mad because I know it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't save anybody's life, or does it? So it's like it's taken us this long to even open up, and I think that in itself is a problem. It's just how much of a stigma,
Right.
how uncomfortable people are talking about it.
Because it's like, ugh, I don't want to offend anybody, or I don't want to push
Yeah.
anybody's buttons, or
Be the
bring up
reason.
traumatic stuff.
Be the yeah. Don't want to be the reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause of how
Mhm.
yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I think that's where the flirting with it starts is in high school and in that teenage community. It's like those expressions of, hey, I'm thinking about this, like, oh, you broke my heart. I loved you, bitch. I'm gonna kill myself. Sort of
Right.
thing. Like I've known so many people in high school say that. Where did that come from? It's like the obligatory LOL that you have to add jokes. Dark humor. You just gotta be like, lol.
Right.
Yep.
It's a slippery slope. You know what I mean? And it's just I don't know. It's a good thing to get it out there and talk about it, but you know what I mean. It's got to be. I think that's why we have this class is to differentiate. Like, okay, who can we talk to this about? Who can we be a little bit more? You know, hey, you know, like in depth with it, or not to be. You know, it's just I don't know. It's a good thing, but it's very traumatic. You know, for everybody. You know, because at least somebody, I bet everybody in this class has somebody that they know that's been affected by it, you know, not them directly themselves, you know, so. But hey, let's do the assignment. What do we have to do again? 10.
Yeah, I was just looking at the list because I was
Oh.
going to say we didn't really come up with anything.
Yeah,
We were
have a
talking about
fantastic
another
list.
aspect of suicide.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for this conversation, guys.
Yep.
All right, group one, Bill, Derek, Matt, and Tiffany. Did you guys do a skit? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Well, I found a place later on that we can fit some skits in. So.
Well, I can't wait.
So you
Thanks
ever
for
see a
making this
list
available
of
for me,
warning
guys.
signs?
Thank you so much for that, Eric. Thank you so much for that, Eric, for implementing that into the to the curriculum.
Mm-hmm. 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 Good. Good. Good list. Group two, Dan and Jessica. Is that all that was in that group?
And Rebecca.
Okay. And Rebecca? Okay.
We listed out like some of the changes of behavior, eating less or more, changing in sleep patterns, maybe increase of like negativity or negative cognitions, or even hyperactive for somebody that's usually more quiet and withdrawn, like being more outgoing and hyperactive. Trying to see what else we had that was different. Financial stuff, like getting affairs in order, calling the insurance company, doing things with the will or powers of attorney kind of things. Prepaying for funerals or like planning ahead for that kind of maybe purchasing weapons or pills or and just maybe stopping medications, like if they have mental illness, maybe just stopping all of those, and just a general increase of erratic behaviors.
Good list. Heidi, Lisa, and Louie.
Pretty much what has been covered. Low self-esteem. It's the culture also, first responders. Someone who has serious or chronic mental illness, intoxication, access to guns is also a risk factor. The feeling of victimization, setting oneself up for failure, even in the face of good things happening, like a good new job. I can't possibly do that. I'm just going to fail anyway. That's their mental mindset.
Yeah.
Negative life events. A lot of factors.
Yep. Okay. Good list. Brandon, Bree, and Justine. Have they missed anything?
Yeah, someone talking about having a heavy burden of guilt.
Okay.
We put not eating, withdrawing from daily norms, pushing away loved ones, quits job and stops paying bills. Isolating, suddenly starts self-harming when they were not previously a self-harmer. Stops going to like support groups, and wishes they weren't born. I'm thinking if those were said. Yeah, and I think everything else on our list was covered by everyone. Hates life, which has had a different life. So yeah.
Cool. Good job, guys. Let's see. I'm not sure that you guys missed anything. Will somebody read the left-hand column here?
The warning signs of suicide are indicators that a person may be in danger.
Sorry, right-hand column.
Excuse me. Have you not noticed someone engaging in risky behavior, something that is out of the norm for that person? Obtaining a weapon or other means of self-harm, becoming preoccupied with death, totally withdrawing from life, loved ones, or activities, increasing drinking, painkiller usage, or excessive medication use, distressed about gender identity or sexuality, seeming overwhelmed after children, or talking about harming their baby, being hopeless about their financial or work situation, being devastated by a relationship problem or breakup, being distraught over uncontrollable gambling.
Yeah, the taxpayers on your butt. The tax collectors on your butt. I'm not sure anybody had said anything about the overwhelmed after childbirth or talking about harming their baby. Did any of the group say that? No.
No.
But all in all, it's a pretty big list of warning signs. Lots of reasons to be asking further questions, right? Here's some more. Getting their affairs in order, giving possessions away, seeming unusually happy, visiting family members and friends with a noticeable goodbye. You know, a goodbye that's kind of out of the ordinary. Mood shifts from despair to calm. You were talking about that, Bill. Looking for medication. Communication. They'll be sorry. I'm all done. Other things like that. Struggling with adjusting. PTSD. And experience a loss of any kind. A warning sign is any unusual behavior. Precipitating events. There's no single event that causes suicide. Other risk factors are typically present. There is usually a precipitating event, which is a recent event that serves as a trigger, moving an individual from thinking about suicide to attempting suicide. Low self-esteem, anxiety, divorced parents, withdrawn, not eating, increased anxiety. Maybe there's a relationship issue or loss of a loved one. And then some protective factors would be close friends, safe housing, and health insurance. Why would health insurance be a protective factor? That's right. Thank you. And the same thing goes with the making funeral arrangements, right? They do that because they don't want to be a burden on the family.
Also, too, like if they get life insurance and they're going through like and planning suicide, they'll plan their life insurance to get like a good policy to stand out. So like, well, at least if I'm a burden on everybody, at least I can leave an inheritance for them. You know what I mean? Because, so it's like they try to cover up like a guilt to like cover what they're about to do, not really thinking that it doesn't qualify in the first 2 years. Well, in Colorado, or the
Right.
first
Insurance
year.
won't cover if it's suicide, right?
Well, they will if it's after 2 years.
Wow. Crazy.
I think it depends on the insurance policy. Okay. Yeah. Have any of you ever heard of the acronym ACT? ACT?
Yes.
Yes. You can tell me what it stands for?
Assess something. I don't remember. It's been too long.
I think there's actually several things that it can be. We're going to go over. Oops. go over a couple of them here. ACT Act. Acknowledge, care, and tell. You acknowledge that you are seeing signs of depression or suicide, that it is serious. Acknowledge that they don't seem like themselves. Let the individual know that you care about them and that you want to help, and follow your organization's protocol until a supervisory staff member or a trusted person, and ask them if there is someone that they trust that they can talk to.
So, yeah, I just got a message that goes right along with our class, and it says, please call me, we need to get together and discuss moving ASAP. I'm missing Fisher and I feel like I just can't do this anymore. I don't stop crying.
Yeah. Yep. That's one of those, somebody's reaching out. For sure.
Yep.
Can somebody read this this slide about the A, acknowledge their pain and be attentive?
A, acknowledge their pain, be attentive, listen to the problem, and give them your full attention. Remember, suicide is not the problem, only the solution to a perceived insoluble problem. Do not rush to judgment. Offer hope in any form. Engage in gentle conversations to connect with the person. Use words like bravery and courage. Build the person up. So active listening comes in like big time into that.
For sure it does. And not panicking. Don't act panic. Right? Somebody read this slide. A could also stand for ask the question. How many of you are comfortable asking this question? On a scale from 1 to 10, how comfortable are you asking this question? I just launched a poll. Please answer.
How do I get the poll? Is that it?
Okay. Waiting on 2 more. 1 more. All right. Well, most of you fall in the pretty comfortable category. Couple of you own this. And 3 of you are not comfortable and not uncomfortable, but at least nobody is at the not at all comfortable stage. It's not an easy thing to do. You guys aren't still seeing that, are you? The poll on your screen?
No.
I think a big part of it too is who you're talking to, you know.
Yeah, sure it is. And hopefully by the time you're at this point with somebody that you're working with, you've established a little bit of rapport. so that you are a little more comfortable with them. Because if it was somebody you're meeting for the first time, it's not going to be easy. But if it's somebody that early in your coaching relationship, hopefully you can handle that with like a almost like an intake or a onboarding type of thing. It's just routine. You know, we ask everybody. Somebody read the slide. The C is for care,
Care, concern, calm, conversation, communication. Make a deep connection, validate their pain, refer to a higher level of care, emphasize not passing them off, that there is a solution, help is available, stay solution focused and forward thinking, offer.
Good. Notice it says refer to a higher level of care. I think that in your evaluation at the end of the day today, there's a question about are we as peers able to keep somebody from committing suicide or something like that. And the correct answer for that one would be no, we're supposed to refer them to a higher level of care. But I believe that it's our conversation with them has a lot to do with that, stopping them. Don't try to take it all on yourself, because if you do fail, it's going to put a lot of weight on you. You're going to have a lot of guilt. You'll feel as if you failed and it cost somebody their life. And that's really why they want us to seek help. Bill? Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's our role as a peer anyways, connecting them to resources, right? How about the T? Somebody read about tell a trusted person refer to treatment.
Will you go with me to get help? Will you let me help you get help? Is there someone we can tell that you trust? Always seek additional peer or supervision support.
Thank you. Talk about it. Myth, talking about suicide or asking someone if they are suicidal is risky because it might put the idea in their head. Have any of you ever thought that?
Yeah.
Or heard somebody say that? The
Yeah.
fact is, you don't give a suicidal person morbid ideas by talking about suicide. The opposite is actually true. Bringing up the subject of suicide and discussing it openly is one of the most helpful things you can do. It allows a suicidal person to feel understood and feel connected. Can I get somebody to read these bullet points, please?
Let the person know you care about them. It won't put the idea in someone's head. It could save someone's life. Reduce the stigma. Avoid contagious theory. Or, what's that word?
Contagion theory.
Contagion theory. Talking about suicidal is suicide prevention.
Thank you. If you want to give someone hope, you've got to believe that there is hope. And you've got to have the confidence that you can lead them to help. Here's the stages of suicide again. ideation, planning, and attempting, with intervention happening before every stage, right? Suicide prevention happens long before the crisis. Somebody please read this slide.
If you see anyone in distress, crisis response. How do you talk with someone who appears to be in distress? ACT. Ask them if they are all right or if they need some help. Talk to them in private. Listen to their story. Tell them you care about them. Validate their pain. Ask directly if they are thinking about suicide. If the answer is yes, refer to CSSRS. Collaborate with them to seek treatment or to contact their doctor or therapist. Avoid debating the value of life, minimizing their problem, or giving advice.
How many of you have heard of the CRSS? Columbia Suicide Severity Index. It was in your handouts. You didn't?
Nor did I.
Oh, I got it.
Well, how about I just share it with you here? This is the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale, and it's a simple form, easy to do. You ask questions 1 and 2. Have you ever wished you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up? And then that's in their lifetime or in the past month. Then you ask, have you ever actually had thoughts of killing yourself? Same thing, in the lifetime and in the past month. Notice that if it's yes in the past month, that block is coded yellow. If they answer yes to question 2, ask questions 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if they do ask yes to question 2, then you say, have you been thinking about how you might do this? Again, in the lifetime and in the past month. Again, if it's in the past month, it's turning orange now. Have you had these thoughts and had some intention on acting on them? If that's yes in the past month, now we're red, okay? Have you started to work out or worked out the details of how to kill yourself? Do you intend to carry out this plan, okay? And then question 6 is, have you done anything, started to do anything, or prepared to do anything to end your life? Collecting pills, obtaining a gun, giving away valuables, wrote a will or a suicide note. If that's a yes in either of them, we're definitely at elevated risk. If it's yellow, it's low risk, orange, moderate risk, and red is high risk. Then on the back of that sheet, it has these. Have you ever wished that you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up in the past month? Have you actually had any thoughts about killing yourself? If it's yes to any of these questions, then we're already in those elevated risk factors. Any yes indicates the need for further care. However, if the answer to 4, 5, or 6 is yes, immediately escort them to emergency personnel for care. Or call this 800 number, text this 741-741, or call 911. How many of you know about the 988 number? Okay, good. If you don't know about 988, you need to know about it. That's the crisis hotline. Call them. You'll get trained professionals ready and able to deal with this stuff. They'll dispatch crisis response right to you, or right to them. Also in the handout that you got, and if you didn't get this, I'll resend it. There's this crisis response protocol. It gives you all sorts of answers on what to do. If the person has a plan and access to lethal means and is planning to make an attempt very soon, or is in the process of making an attempt, the client is in imminent danger, contact your supervisor immediately and have other recovery specialists call the local law enforcement or 988. Promote hope by listening. Try not to interrupt them and be willing to sit with them as they talk about the reasons why they want to die. Let them get all those reasons out and then listen as they come up with their own reasons to live. Do not tell the caller what you think their reasons for living should be, as what you think are reasons to live may be stressors to the caller. While listening, do not rush to judgment. Let them know that they are not alone and that help is available. Form a safety net. While arranging for help, keep the caller on the phone engaged in conversation. Ask the caller if there is anyone else they feel comfortable talking about this to, or that you can call and reach out to for them. Parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, friends, priests, professors, mentors, or coaches. Stay eyes on or on the line with the person until law enforcement or EMT arrives and the caller is safe. When the call has concluded, practice self-care. Talk with others and your supervisor about the call or the session that you had with the people. Why is that important, guys?
Because when you're constantly taking in negativity, even if it's someone's negativity about their own life versus you, it's still a lot to handle, and that can be very detrimental to one's mental health, and that can start breaking you down, and you can start looking at all the negatives in your life, and that can bring you to a very unsafe, unhealthy place.
It can also just be incredibly traumatic. I've been on calls with people who were suicidal and I started shaking. I didn't expect to because I've had conversations with people about it before, but it can be really traumatic to deal with that. Especially if you don't know that the person's willing to get the help that they need and carry on. I had one time a caller hung up on me afterwards when I was in the middle of transferring to a counselor, and that was so hard because you didn't know what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that would be tough. So not all of you received that handout from me?
Right.
Just resent it to everybody. I did. I think that's what we have you down as. It's the yeah, the one with Colorado Health Network. Yeah. Do I have your other email, Bill?
Yeah, so I haven't got the email yet. Oh, yeah, I just got it. Thank you.
All right, Bill, I just forwarded it to your other email. But that's a handy tool, and I think it makes it easy for asking those difficult questions, you know? Somebody read this: suicide prevention as a recovery coach.
Recovery coaching is prevention, protective factors, teaching life skills, support groups, social connectivity, reviewing safety plan or WRAP, listen deeply, discuss caringly their suicidal ideation if they live with these thoughts daily, possible referral to a mental health peer supporter, referrals to higher care, hope. Social capital. It is said everyone needs 5 people in their life that they can speak freely to without fear of judgment and ridicule. As a peer, you may be that first person for someone. Some people.
You may be their only person, really. Somebody else, please continue on. Roles and responsibilities as a recovery coach.
Ask the question, attempted suicide. It should be a organizational policy. Answers will determine the next questions. Refer to your organization's protocols. Recovery wellness support. Engage in conversations about their safety plans. See handouts.
You went mute for some reason, Lisa. Somebody want to pick up where she left off?
Recovery wellness support. Engage in conversation about their safety plan. See handouts. Discuss their adherence to medications, sleep habits, and moods. Discussing distressed moments during their week is suicide prevention. Ethics and advocacy. Recognize potential risk factors and mental health issues, and know when to refer to services or speak with your supervisor. Resource broker. Know the respite centers and peer mental health community centers in your area. Know the emergency resources in your area. Mobile crisis response.
Thank you. Somebody please continue reading this slide. When someone's at risk, a crisis situation.
If a person says they are considering suicide, the situation will determine the course of action. Stay calm. Take the person seriously. Act. Follow your organization's protocol. Conduct a lighthouse project, CSSRS, or similar severity scale. Eyes on. Stay with them until transferred to a trusted person. Connect with the supervisor or clinician on duty. Help them call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline or text TALK to 741-741 to text with a trained crisis counselor from the crisis text hotline for free, 24/7. escort them to mental health services or an emergency room, or call their therapist with them. Call 911 or 988.
Thank you. The new digit 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline goes live, has been live since July. July of 2022. You can also find more resources at Samshaw. What if a person is suicidal and refuses to go for an evaluation or refuses to call their therapist? Somebody read this slide, please. Thank you, Bill. And again, intervention happens before every stage. Time for a skill building activity. That will be our, guess what that'll be? That'll be our skits. Yay.
Take it off.
Okay, we've got 3 breakout rooms.
You'll put it in your backpack.
Breakout room.
Okay,
We'll
go
have
put
a
it away.
different scenario.
In the bathroom. Why? Put it in the bathroom. Oops, sorry.
Breakout room number 1 is Brandon, Derek, Jessica, Justine, and Rebecca. Your scenario is a recovery comes in and shares that they recently lost their best friend to an overdose. Okay, so we need the recovery, we need a recovery coach, and then other supporting roles as you see fit. Okay. Scenario 2, room 2, Bill, Bree, Heidi, and Louie. You have, during intake, a recovery answers yes to ever having thoughts of suicide. Okay. Room 3, Dan, Lisa, Matt, and Tiffany. A recovery comes in and shares that they struggle with all the damage they've done to their family. The recovery says, I can't do this anymore. I just want to end it. I'll put these up on the screen real quick if you want to take a picture or whatever so you can see what your scenario is or remember what your scenario is. How much time do you need to prepare? 7 minutes long enough to prepare? The skit only needs to be 2 to 5 minutes long.
If they need to be close, yeah, I guess 7 should work. They only need to be a couple
7 minutes long enough, or do you need longer to prepare? I'm guessing 7 minutes is long enough. Okay, we'll see you guys in 7 minutes. You got your skits, man.
I guess that So we're group 2 that they answered that they have ever had thoughts of suicide. So that would mean over their lifetime, correct? So according to that severity rating scale, then that would be a white check mark if we're going based off of that. So that would essentially mean that there would be low severity then.
So if someone answers yes to ever having thought about committing suicide over their lifetime, even if it's just one time, like regardless, like you want to make sure that they have a really healthy support team in their life, that they do have a therapist, that they do have people that they can reach out to if they ever start drifting towards that. And you want to like find out like what their conversations with themselves are as well, to see if they have any of those like warning flag thoughts, like I just can't do this anymore. I really hate it. I just can't do it anymore. Because even though those aren't thoughts of suicide in that moment necessarily, that can definitely be a very leading sign that they could be heading back towards that. Yeah, absolutely. Especially with it being around the holidays, like, so like you want to inquire about like stressors. What stressors are you dealing with in your life right now?
Seems like we need to ask them the question, have you been thinking about how you might do this? That's number 3. And then 4, have you had these thoughts and had some intention of acting on them?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, haha. Nice. Cool. You're awesome, Bill.
So would you I agree, this is perfect. Well, I want to copy and paste this in case it deletes.
Oh, and it will. Oh, it will delete. Guaranteed.
All right, it's there.
I have my Mountain Dew and my pizza. Oh no, wait, it's Dr. Pepper. Right? It's Dr. Pepper and pizza. There we go. It's the most amazing thing. And like with Mountain Dew, like Mountain Dew's different in America than it is in like Canada, because Canada, they don't it doesn't have any caffeine at all in it, and it totally changes the taste of Mountain Dew.
Cool.
Yes, I
Sounds
like it.
good.
Right? I wish. I wanna learn a different language. Oh yeah, absolutely. That guy cracks me up. Probably. Oh, it'll be good. All right, well, I'll see you guys on the other side.
All right.
Ours was a hard one. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Like frosting.
All right. Who wants to go first?
So Heidi and Louie, you want to go first?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm good.
Group 2, you're up. Everybody else, turn your cameras off. So their scenario
Right.
is during intake, a recovery answers yes to having thoughts of suicide. Take it away.
Okay.
And I say, Louie, you're not alone. We are here for you. Bree is here to help, and so am I.
Louie, thank you for sharing that. It takes courage to open up. How are you feeling right now?
It's just been tough lately, you know?
Louie, I'm here as your recovery coach. We can navigate this together. I want to ensure you to help you get the support that you need.
I appreciate that, Bill. Just having people who care means a lot.
We're all here for you. You're not alone on this journey.
Louie, I'm going to ask you some more questions to better understand your feelings and experiences. It's part of the process to make sure that we also provide the right support.
Bill, you're funny.
Pretty good for take one. What do you guys think? Rest of you, look, cameras back on.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
Well, we were that good that there's just no feedback. Great job, guys. Right? I mean, geez.
I think you guys did a good job of showing support. Yeah. Okay, group. Who's next? Group 1 or 3?
You guys want to go?
Yeah, we can.
It's like
Sure.
Jessica, Brandon, Derek, Jessica, Justine, and Rebecca. Everybody else, turn your cameras off. Their scenario is a recovery comes in and shares that they recently lost their best friend to an overdose.
Hey, Rebecca. Brandon recommended that we come in today and talk to you.
Okay, what would you like to talk about?
My friend just overdosed. And I'm having a really hard time. It was like my best friend.
So how can I help you with this? Like, I mean, do you have any thoughts? Like, what are you feeling? Like, so I could better understand you, if I can understand your emotions, maybe I can help you with some resources or be a friend. So if you need to talk to me one-on-one or.
Yeah, I just don't know what to do. I have like not too many other friends. I don't really have anybody else. And now I lost this. I have Derek, but like no other friends.
Okay. Can I ask Derek some questions since he's your friend that brought you here?
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
Hey Derek, so have you been, what are your concerns about your friend that you thought that she needed to come and talk?
Well, I do see you doing some and giving away all of her stuff. Stuff that we had put together that we, they had memories with and stuff. She's giving it to me, and it's just very concerning because I have a feeling that with the loss of a friend and the fact that we were so close and tight and all, it's affecting her really bad in a very bad way. So.
Okay. I just want to let you know that those are normal signs. It can be that it's just you're hurting, you're grieving, and so she's giving them to you, Derek, because you're her friend that she trusts. So at this moment, while she's going through this, it might be well that she separates from it. So she's giving it to you as a safe spot. But just you could keep it safe for her. There's some groupings that you can go to, like compassionatefriends.org. They help provide with friendship and understanding. Betterhelp.com, church care. Did I lose everybody? Oops, sorry about that. But there's definitely, like some other help, like therapy, maybe talking to your doctor. I can definitely like refer you to some people if you would like my help. But most of all, I'm here for you. If you need to talk to me one-on-one, I'm a friend for you. I've been through a loss myself, and I know how it feels.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great if you have like maybe I could join like a support group or something for
Yeah, definitely.
people going through the same kind of thing, or
yes,
get
I
some
will
extra.
get those information, and I can get you printing out some handouts, and also for you too as well, Derek. Because you're being her support, but both of you guys can be supportive with each other. It's good for you guys to both lean on each other at this time.
Definitely. All right, and scene.
Good job. Good job. All right, everybody back on.
My camera went off on its own.
Your thoughts? Derek stole your line. He did, didn't he?
I think I came up with that first.
It is good. Good feedback, Bill. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Last group, group 3. Dan, Lisa, Matt, and Tiffany.
Can't wait.
Everybody else, cameras off. Their scenario is a recovery comes in and shares that they struggle with all the damage they've done to their family. The recovery says, I can't do this anymore. I just want to end it. And action.
This one was really hard. Okay, so I guess like the recovery.
I can't hear anything. Is it my speaker?
No, she's cutting out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
Nothing. We were having technical difficulties. I can run my piece. I can tell you the whole, hey, I'm here today because I've done some terrible things to my family as an addict. Like over the course of the years, I've slowly gone from lying to manipulating to violence. I robbed my mom at gunpoint. I took her wedding ring. Like I've physically assaulted my uncles and my cousins. I am making up lies all the time just to exploit money out of them. It's just gotten too much. I can see the hurt in their eyes. Everybody has alienated me, and it's like I cannot right any of these wrongs. And I think I'm done here. Like the pain I've caused is so unbearable to the people that I love that I'm done. I got my dog at home. I'm really just basically living out of my car at this point. So whoever pulls my body out of it, go ahead and keep it. So that's what's up. I don't see a solution to any of these things. I really fucked. Word, thanks for that advice.
Our
Yeah.
recovery coach is not able to speak right now.
I can jump in and play that role too. Dan, you're in. Go. You're the recovery coach now.
Man, that's a lot of things to feel a lot of hurt about, and I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate to that. But how would that make your family feel if you went out like that and you could have a chance to make things right?
Real talk. I don't think there is a resolution, and the pain I can see, I honestly think they would feel better for me. You know, there's too much hurt sometimes, and I feel I've gone there.
It's good to feel those emotions and recognize that you actually hurt those type of people, hurt those people that you loved in your life. But why? How does that solve anything by ending your own life?
Because I'm not special in that regard. I know other people hurt their families, and families hurt other people. And there's really nothing. What's available? Look around. Look at our society right now. Nobody cares. What I'm gonna do? Elbow my way into the middle class? Nobody there cares. Everybody who's poor, they don't have time for this shit. Like, there's no space. There's no time for this. Like, time's done.
Yeah, but how is throwing more gas on a fire gonna make the fire go out. I mean, you're just gonna hurt those people even more, whether you realize it or not.
I don't want to cause more harm. That's what I've done so far. It's done nothing but harm, and I don't want to continue that cycle.
Well, that's still gonna cause harm. Do you have a plan? And I mean, are you gonna do anything right now, or do we need to get you some help?
I do think I need some help. Yeah, I do have a plan, and it could go any way. You know, if I go have a drink, I can go yeet myself off the overpass, and then I'll be that. So yeah, I do think I need some help. There's some resources you can get me to. I would need those.
Okay. Well, either I can help you get there, or you can probably go check yourself in at the hospital, and then they'll have somebody that'll watch you and make sure that you stay safe until you can get somebody that can, you know, give you some help and some support, and I'll be here for you.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll head over to the hospital because this is getting serious, and then
Yeah,
we'll stay in touch.
sounds good, man.
All right. Thank you for your help and being there.
Yeah, always.
All right.
Job. Good job. Good job, Dan.
Winging it.
And really, anytime this happens to us, it's really probably just winging it, right? None of us are ever going to be prepared fully. But it does help to have some things, to have some tools that you can refer to, like the Suicide Severity Index scale. Have some resources like 988. So it's 7:23. Do you guys want to break, or do you want to push through? You want to break? Louis needs a break. Okay.
If
Let's
we
take a
could break, that would be great.
Let's take a break until 7:35. We'll come back and finish it up. We've only got half a dozen slides to do.
Okay.
7:35.
I make gross looking food that was a different.
Welcome back. So most of us are aware of the privacy laws and HIPAA and 42 CFR Part 2, but are you aware that that doesn't apply when we're talking about suicide? Okay.
Yes, I am very aware of that.
So HIPAA and 42 CFR do not apply in emergency situations. The safety of the person at risk is the priority. You share pertinent information only with those who need to know. Inform the key people what you saw, what the person said, any background information, and whether there is any access to me. Whenever there's the possibility of harm to self or others, you are not bound by confidentiality.
Baby.
Crisis intervention, document the call and steps taken, clearly stating the date, time, location, and situation, what the disposition of the individual is and why you made the call, steps you took during the intervention, the person's response to your intervention, your actions taken, your personal follow-up plan as a recovery coach, and who is involved in the plan. Could somebody read this slide, please?
There is no magic pill. Prevention is giving a person the space to talk about it. Prevention is telling someone they matter. Prevention is aware of behaviors. Prevention is knowing the risk factors. Prevention is knowing the warning signs. Prevention is caring. Prevention is being a good human being.
Thank you. What is postvention? Anybody?
Postventions are the strategies for taking care of yourself or helping another person heal after the experience of suicide thoughts, attempts, or death. Then the
I'll show that
WW. Okay. Do you want me to keep on reading?
Yeah.
Social attitudes have a profound effect on suicide and suicide prevention. Suicide risk can be reduced with individual and societal commitments to social justice, equality, and equity, including but not limited to addressing and speaking out on such issues as stigma, homophobia, racism, institutional poverty, abuse, oppression, and particularly ensuring access to effective and appropriate medical treatment and support.
Yeah.
The CASP/ACPS.
Thank you.
I'm here to talk about postvention as part of suicide prevention planning. And postvention is a not so user-friendly term, but what it means is responding or being prepared to respond in a way that's helpful after a suicide death. And the goal of postvention is to promote healing and reduce risk after there's been a suicide. And that's a really important piece because one of the things that we know is that one of the highest risk factors for suicide is when we know somebody who's died by suicide. So after there's been a suicide death of someone we know, statistically we become at higher risk for suicide. One important consideration for responding after a suicide death is cultural issues, and it's particularly important given the the relationship of cultural and religious issues to death. And they can be very different for different cultures. And understanding them and having sensitivity to that is a really key component of suicide postvention efforts. Suicide death is the proverbial pebble in the pond. And it's important to have an effective response that treats the immediate first wave that impacts on family and friends, as well as working around those ripples that flow out from there into the community and into the larger society, and how that might impact through media and social media. Particularly for young people, we can see that situations where how that person is memorialized may lead to suicide contagion. And contagion is a term that's used for when several suicides occur or suicide attempts occur after a suicide death. One of the areas where the research is very strong is around how the media reports on suicide. And the media can reduce risk, or they can increase risk and contribute to contagion if they glamorize suicide, they report it repeatedly, they go into graphic details about the suicide death. And so this becomes a little bit more complicated, but allowing families to memorialize their loved one in a way that is respectful is really important, but it's also important that that they try to do so in a balanced way that doesn't inadvertently romanticize or glamorize the death. At the community level and the systems level, one of the challenges is that oftentimes people don't feel like they need to prepare for a suicide death. While they understand that suicide occurs, because it occurs so infrequently, there's sort of a belief that it will never happen here. And so when a suicide death does occur, they're often unprepared and or not trained about how best to reduce risk and promote healing. One of the challenges in promoting healing and reducing risk after suicide is working with first responders and providers who themselves are so typically focused on giving and leading a response that they lose the importance of self-care and the potential impact that this suicide death has on them. And for community members who have relied on law enforcement, on guidance counselors, on mental health providers, on faith leaders, we oftentimes don't check back with them to make sure that they're getting the support that they need. Another challenge that often is part of thinking about responding to a suicide death as part of a comprehensive suicide prevention effort is when there are limited resources and funding, many people feel that it's best to put the money towards prevention efforts, and they don't understand or consider that postvention really is prevention. And that's important for them to understand and think about that as part of their planning process. So part of what we encourage people to think about is to develop policies and procedures or protocols for what to do in the event of a suicide death. Unlike suicide prevention efforts, we want everybody to understand the risk factors and warning signs. With postvention, we're really looking at those key providers like funeral directors and faith leaders and law enforcement and mental health providers to understand what that postvention response is. So it's not a universal method. It's something that we would have targeted to specific populations. The overall goal for a response after suicide death is about being prepared, identifying pathways for communication and sensitivity around communication to the family, and then implementing that in a response that is effective and timely.
So postvention, it's important, yeah. Self-care is what it is.